This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
AI, of course, is all the rage. It's got to be one of the more important words of 2024. It might even have been 2023 as well. I'm not sure about that. But as it evolves, so it becomes so much more interesting. What is hype? What is reality? And how do we maximize what is available to us? I'm Howard Feldman from Synthesis, and it's an absolute pleasure to be having this conversation with Marvin Ngubeni from Google and Archie Achana Arakal from Synthesis as we try and figure this out, the difference between hype and practicality, what we can benefit from it, what businesses, what our customers can benefit, how they can benefit from AI, and how they can do so in a relatively simple manner. Thank you for joining us, guys. So it's so interesting because I think that's one of those words, or one of the AI is something that the 3-year-old will know of. They might not know what it means, but then I don't think their parents will either. So can we just get a simple definition of what it actually means? Who's going to start? Marvin, let's go with you.
I can go first.
Yeah.
I think for me, the best explanation I've heard, right? Because I think a lot of people interchange machine learning and AI, but they are separate things. So machine learning, how we actually train the machines to be able to understand, obviously, some content or information. And then AI, how does then a machine take a decision based on what it's learned?
Okay,
so for me, it's really that portion of it around AI, machines making the decisions.
So if I go online, I go to Takealot and I buy whatever I buy. I buy this pen, and it says to me that customers who bought this pen also bought this paper. Is that machine learning or AI?
So that would be machine learning,
okay,
I would say, because the machine has been trained to look at patterns that people have been making.
Okay.
Right. Where you really want to have AI is really the machine taking a decision and probably get to a point where it's taking an action around that as well. So you think of, I want to book a trip. I want to have an agent that will then add the entries into my calendar.
Okay. So let me just ask you another example. And I think it was The Power of Habit. Did you read The Power of Habit? They spoke about one of the larger, way before any of this, when they were sending out, companies were sending out pamphlets, brochures to their customers. They could tell that a woman who bought there was a change in their buying patterns, and I think they would buy certain items. They would be able to predict that person is probably going to be or is expecting a baby. And what they did was they would then send out, do you remember this part of the book, where they would send out brochures for all baby buying stuff? I don't know, strollers, Americans, strollers and diapers. Look at this. I mean, anyway. And then the one guy came in and said, "How dare you send this to my daughter? She's 16. And it turned out, in fact, that she was pregnant. But so that was, I would imagine, if we took that, let's say, on one of our online things, and it could recognize a pattern or a behavior, and then send out information predicting that would be, is what you're saying.
Correct. Because I think we're trying to get to a point where you're able to actually personalize the experience for the different users. And I think AI is something that we are starting to train to reach to that point where every, call it retailers, right? They're searching for that hyper personalization. But the only way you can get there, even in the use case that you gave, is knowing the behavior of the individual. So if I go on the website, these are the things I'm occasionally searching for. These are the things I'm clicking on. And I might be clicking on certain things, which is the browse history, right? And not buying, but I continuously keep going to check those Pampers as an example. So what does that actually tell me about, what might be coming in the future for me?
Archie, I'm interested from a customer perspective, because in that case, what they had to do was then they had to send in that brochure, they would include gardening stuff and the diapers. So they would kind of hide it because customers were a bit freaked out by this. What are you seeing with customers? How far can they push this? I mean, do they have to moderate it?
They do, and that's kind of, we had a webinar earlier, and we were talking. You have to bring AI and humans together, because humans react in a specific way, and there are regulations and governance for a very specific reason, because you don't want to cause a panic type situation. So there is still fear. There is still very much a need to try and control as much as they can. But the way I kind of see it is, human beings, if we are going to be trying to control this, we still need to help human beings with the existing set of work and scaling those human tasks as well to some degree without causing panic. So there is a middle ground.
In other words, use AI to take away the really irritating, painful stuff. And that everybody wants to do. I mean, nobody wants the repetitive stuff anymore, obviously.
Exactly. And I think that's where I'm seeing the most value. There's obviously other use cases, but if it still whittles down to human beings are brilliant. The brain is such a great thing, but we're not using the full capacity of what it can be. And by letting AI sort of take over this little mundane task that we do, like, for example, looking at certain things, booking a flight, etc., all those little things are things we can very much get AI to build for us in the future. Why not do that? Why are we trying to replace existing things? Just use the pieces where it is actually beneficial for it.
Because it's available. So why go and build that itinerary out and fill in all of your contact? Use a system to do it.
Even profiling, right? How did we do it before we had recommendation models? How do we do it before there's an actual human being sitting there, understanding the psychology behind human beings and understanding what is the next action for the specific behavior? For example, the moms, right? Future moms. There was a person that used to do that before. But now we've gotten to a point where models are so much more sophisticated and can pick out patterns. So we can basically get that whole thing automated. Not saying we pap the human being out though.
Yeah. What's interesting as well is we live in this, and we know it's actually a bit of a problem news-wise. We live in this world of confirmation bias. So we go into X, and whatever I'm interested in or whoever I'm engaging with, I'm going to see more of that, and they're going to see more of my stuff and my type of stuff. And then we create these silos, which we like, because why do I want to hear about American basketball if it's just not something that interests me? I'm going to ignore those tweets anyway. But at the same time, it has potential to limit us, doesn't it?
Does. And I can give my take on this. So we're actually just we're trying to build a recommendation model. And one of the problems that we came across is our models are profiling and then giving the same sort of recommendations based on a community, which is great. But then what about things like a Spotify playlist? And you're an individual that wants to consistently try out different genres.
Yes.
That market is missing out. And then they eventually leave the market because the recommendation engine isn't working as best. So in those scenarios, and that's why you have to think about the person behind all of this, right? The users that you're creating this for. You can profile, but there is sophisticated techniques.
So I'll tell you, it's interesting because I've been giving a lot of thought to it's a passion of mine, which is media and news and how we consume news. Now, using that X example, it's very much curated towards us because that's how. But you go onto a CNN, a BBC, a News 24, whatever it would be, it's still actually got the format or the approach of a broadsheet, of a published paper. Whatever's there is there. And I was thinking to myself, well, surely these publications are very, very much behind. The reason that they are dying, and they are dying, is maybe because they've stuck to a format that is quite rigid. What happens if it said news you need to know. In other words, whether you like it or not, pal, this is what's happening in the world. News for you. And saying that if I am interested in basketball, the basketball is going to be populated to my news feed and articles around it. But somehow we haven't got that mix.
I think that's where the options come in, right? You want to give your users as much option as possible. And it's something that we've been playing around with from our side, right? You have the what's recommended for you, but why not give top trending topics
Exactly.
for the
Exactly.
as well? So
Yes.
you actually have a mixture of the different recommendations that somebody can actually go into. And then the next part is then how do you make it easier for them to navigate? And I think that's where Gen AI is really starting to play a part, where guided search is kind of the next thing that we are seeing from our side. We have some customers globally that have implemented it and kind of having tile search as well.
So can
how
you
do you
tell me practically how that works? Like what would give me an application?
So you look at, you go into, for guided search as an example, you go into a website, I want to search for a carpet, right? Searching for a carpet and searching for a table, certain things need to pop up in terms of the filters, need to pop up first. So for a carpet, it might be the size of the kind of, dimensions that I might be looking for. For a table, it could be a shape that I'm looking
Right.
for as well.
Or what it's most
So it's certainly
yeah.
being able to contextually understanding of the catalog and then contextually providing the right the right filters for the person to be actually able to go through. So that's how you.
And for the
guide user
store,
experience.
that's going to increase the chances of a purchase, of a sale, because if I hate marble tables and I'm going through lists of marble tables to find the glass table, or I like glass tables and they all pop up, there's a much greater chance I'll conclude the deal.
Correct.
So interesting. I mean, the reality is that Google itself actually is dealing with what everybody else is dealing with to some extent, because you've got all of this data, and the question is what to do with it. Companies, our customers, are pretty much in the same position, obviously within a certain more limited context. So how do we do that? How do we guide a customer to say, listen, guys, this is what you've got, and it's a lot. Where did I start?
We have to find the smallest possible problem we can tackle and work in that small problem and literally iterate until we get to a point where that solution is the perfect solution.
Right.
It's impossible to take everything in one big bang approach and build a solution around that.
And it's too overwhelming because we can't get our heads around it.
We don't know how much of that data is relevant. Like I can imagine the Google search site, that's probably why I needed guided search in the first step. For tech, right? Like it is a very different way of doing things. Even, Google searching capability has been around for 25 years.
Oh, 25 years.
That's incredible. But it's evolved.
It's both insane, but the reality is if I ask my mom, go find something, go search it. She's searching like at least 10, 15 times before she gets to the final thing that she actually is looking for. Purely because it's not as intuitive as it needs to be, or like you need to know how to go about searching. Even having the ability to search in the right way is a tap on its own, right? It needs to be eventually trained into that point. Similar with like prompting.
I was just thinking prompting is pretty much that.
We haven't figured out search. Now we've already jumped into prompting. So it's going to be a small iterative sort of process where we have to bring people along the journey. We have to show them how it's done and show the proof points of how this is actually impacting their lives. Doing it just a big bang approach, never going to work.
Yeah. And I guess to show them how it benefits their customers, because it does. At a financial institution, at a bank, I don't want to hear about, financing of farming equipment because it's not so it's not relevant. So, but maybe I want to hear about share trading platforms and all sorts of things like that would needs to, I'd be more, there'd be a greater chance that I would engage with.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be tech for tech's sake, right? It needs to be driven by what is the most valuable thing that my organization needs right now? And what is that small product that I can start building out? I'm calling it product loosely. It could be different things. What is that small thing that I can do right now with the technology that I have at my disposal quickly? That's like the key thing. And Google has like really cool agents and stuff around that can help in shortening that period of delivery so that you can see that value as it's happening. Because the first thing that you build is probably going to be a waste. But the value there is understanding what is the real thing that people are actually looking out for. So it has to be small, quick little iterations. And if I always tie back to what is that value stream? What is that?
Yeah, how does it get it for the business? Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say on the value side, I see a lot of organization kind of focusing on ROI. So what's kind of, for building this thing, what's going to be the return on investment? But sometimes productivity is its own ROI as well.
100%.
So the fact that you have people not spending, what was the stat that you gave in the webinar, 600 hours every day of audio that is being generated, but now you actually have a machine that is able to summarize and even maybe surface the top cases that they should be really concentrating on. So that productivity gain,
yes,
obviously
huge,
leads to immense returns at the end of the day as well. So yeah.
So what are some of the tools? What are some of the ways in which, from a Google perspective, you guys are addressing this?
Yeah, I think obviously we're chatting around contact center AI being one of the tools that we're trying to bring out there to market as well. We've always had let's say a different version of it, but now obviously because of generative AI, it's led us to a completely different way of how we actually deal with contact centers, right? So things like Agent Assist, it's like we keep saying, you don't have to replace the humans that are currently doing the job. But if someone is chatting to a customer and we have the history of the customer, you're able to then surface the next best offer that they could actually give to the customer. Or someone is complaining about something, how should they respond based on obviously what the Agent Assist is picking up. So you have the bots actually listening in as well.
Yes.
And giving what the suggestion.
But it's interesting because in a strange way, although we're fearful of this, for the customer, they feel more seen because their information, their history, because now you're contacting an organization, and we all know this. You've got to go through everything again, the whole thing again. Whereas if I go through to them and it's, hi Howard, how can I help you? Have you resolved that issue that you had a month ago, or is this the same thing? I feel
the history is there with the organization.
Yes, and I feel seen, which is ironic because the fear around AI is that we aren't seen and that it isn't about that we're removing the human, but actually it's a way in which to make it more human.
Correct.
Because it sees me and it understands who I am as an individual.
Exactly.
But you bring up an important point around that value piece, right? It's not just ROI. Even like that, your sense of feeling seen is value, customer experience.
Yep.
So when we're thinking about value, what is the value that we're working towards? We need to be creative in understanding what is it that our customers actually need. Do they need just a money boost? Do they want to be more seen? Do they want to be, I don't want to go through so many different call centers to get what they want.
Right.
So being very creative in what value actually means for an organization is also quite a critical piece, because value is not just numbers. There's much more higher value chains that you can actually target.
Can I bring up one?
Yes, because it's so interesting that your mind just goes in so many different areas.
Like right now, the focus has been kind of the customer and the organization, but what about the employees as well? So there's certain use cases where you think of, I was chatting at the AI Expo recently. I think it's the Filament Publication Board, and they were telling me about how obviously there's certain content that's being sent to them that they're supposed to go through, and some of it very explicit. So having those kind of content blockers, how can you take that content, train AI to identify the content and surface the ones that needs to be then kind of evaluated or taken to the next stage? So now you don't have humans actually trawling through all these images, because to the psyche, what does that do to the individual who's actually looking at that? But now we're able to use AI to minimize the impact on the employee. So you actually start looking at the well-being of the employees.
It's incredible.
And employee productivity, right? Like there's this age-old discussion around code agents. Is the quality of code to deplete as time? You're using it already, right? Everyone is already leveraging off it. Ask any developer that you're speaking. Are you any of the GPT types? Are you using any code agents? Are you using any of those things? And they probably are already to some degree. So even though we're afraid of all these things, the productivity and the values are already arising. It's either you kind of jump ship and like continue to leverage off those technologies, or you really will just be behind. So there's also like a case to be made for, like, if we think about employees as an example, retention, right? Making sure people are happy in their current state because they're leveraging off the best tools at their disposal to make their output better. That's also like a really good value stream to consider here.
So interesting. So many different things. Okay, so let me ask you this. Marvin, don't listen to her answer right now. Pretend you're in one of these booths. Archie, if I had to ask you, and we're going to write this down and we're going to revisit this. We're ending 2024, starting 2025 soon. What do you think will be the number one use or trend or application in 2025 in terms of AI?
Domain-specific agents. That's like the big thing I'm seeing.
Okay, explain that to us.
So what that actually means is exactly what Marvin also alluded to it earlier. It's literally having a very specific mundane tasks that human beings are currently supported in doing, but having an agent to kind of take over that and get human beings to eventually just approve or decline whatever's going on.
In other words, if I'm a relationship manager at the bank, I can come in on a Monday morning, and in fact, I've got all of these emails prepared for me for my clients, and all I've got to do is go through it and say, "Yep, that's right, go." Instead of copying, pasting, and using, so it's that type of thing.
Literally that, right? And we don't realize it.
Good idea. Yeah.
You want your emails open. But here's the thing, right? Because human beings are not that, like, they have a certain pattern of doing things, right? When you type out an email, you do emails in a specific way. Even when you're writing, right? You write things in a very specific way. You have your own personality on top of it. Yes, sure, it can't be as creative, but especially the admin tasks. Like, we just literally need to have that same sort of template, copy paste across over and over again, and that's what an agent does. It takes the best version of your set of actions that you're doing, and it just keeps repeating that. You obviously need to control it and control the inputs behind it. But the reality is the same thing over and over again. And there's so much value being seen in that. But granted, there are things around like regulations and governance. It's happening.
Yeah.
People are already adopting to some degree. So
Yeah. No doubt. Okay. You didn't hear a word that she said? Right. What do you think? I mean, you can agree, obviously. If that's...
I definitely agree with it, because I think from our side, definitely things like SecLM, MedLM is what we're seeing. What I would like to see, kind of the big things being, is we obviously know with regionally and talking Africa, there is obviously a lack of data that's being used to actually train the models very specific to what we would like to see or hear within the region. So seeing more of Gemini, as an example, being able to converse in Zulu, I think that's going to be the big thing that you see.
That is
We already
world altering for people. Yeah.
we already have, I think one of the banners we have is like, can your machine learning model speak 175 languages, whatever it is? And I think that's the dream that we are pushing from our side. So
I love that.
So making sure whether you're going
And it goes back to the being seen thing, because talk to me in a language that I understand. Talk to me in a language style, because I will talk differently to somebody else,
accessibility, right? Because that's what it means at the end of the day. And I think we're talking about it in the kitchen now around the gaming space as well. So, or the way people put trades in. It's very different to, you know, how you'd probably be saying it if you're reading it on a paper. But people on the trading floor or even on the different platforms, there's a style of pattern that they go. So that kind of adoption of the models to be able to understand those nuances in different locales is something that I think is
Incredible.
big. Yeah.
That is where we do have to leave it. But this is a I know, but it's this is you know what, we need to do this once a quarter. We actually need to. There's too much to talk about, and what we can do is just see where this is going, because this is awesome. It's just such a fantastic conversation. In fact, in the comments below, give us your thoughts. Ask us or give us a topic, because we have to do this more often. These are the conversations that we need to have. So if you can do that, we'll get together again with Google and we'll make sure that we are having these conversations. Also roundtables, things like getting together and saying, what are these things that we need to figure out? Who do we get into a room to say, this is our way forward, or some of the challenges that companies are having. It's such an exciting space, and the potential is just absolutely tremendous. I think what we have to do is remove the fear, look at the opportunity, look at what it can do for customers and consequently for businesses, and we take this forward. Marvin, Archie, thank you for this conversation. I'm Howard Feldman, chatting from the Synthesis offices, and we'll definitely see you again as we continue this conversation.